Pete, thank you so much for joining us on This Is Purdue, the official university podcast. Tell us a little bit about your Boilermaker background.
Gosh, it's actually a long story. I played ball here. Last season was 1980. I played center. Started all 4 years with Hall of Fame quarterback Mark Herman, so that was a big highlight. I married a Purdue girl, met my wife at Purdue. We're celebrating our 39th anniversary next month. All three of my kids are Purdue grads, two of them in engineering, one of them in sales. I started with a couple of buddies, the Boilermaker Business Exchange, about 10 years ago. I'm the chairman of the Boiler Business Exchange, and Learfield reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in being the color analyst for the Purdue Football Network.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, and I said, I'll do it for 1 year. So this was my 31st year doing that. So I'm around Purdue a lot. I've had a lifetime love affair with Purdue, and events like these are so great because you see all the generations coming together and see a lot of old friends, and you make a lot of new friends. So really happy to be here today.
What does it mean to you to be ingrained in this Purdue culture, this athletics culture, for so many years?
It's unique to Purdue. I have a lot of friends. I'm in commercial real estate. That's what I do for a real living, and I work for a developer called Sandstone Group now after 30 years of having my own company and working for larger companies. And so I meet a lot of people in my business, and everybody has good experiences to talk about with their alma maters, but Purdue truly is unique. When I travel rather extensively on business. I always wear something that says Purdue on it.
Yeah.
And you would be amazed how many people will stop you and say, oh, you're a Purdue guy. And I still will always love Arnett Tiller for coming up with the phrase boiler up.
Right.
And I'll never forget when she did that. My wife Susan and I became really good friends with Joe and Arnett. And when she first came up with that, she took it from cowboy up because they were from Wyoming. And everybody thought, well, this is going to catch on. And obviously it caught on in a big way. And so when I go through an airport, when I'm in any city in the world, I'll get at least 3 or 4 boilers up if I'm wearing my Purdue shirts. And you stay together. A lot of people go to other schools, they have a good experience, they leave. They don't get back much, but coming to an event like this, I saw guys that played with Leroy Keys and Vinny Sutherland, obviously when he was here with Drew Brees, and you got Kevin Sumlin, who had an amazing career as a head football coach, and he's back here. I found out today, I've known Kevin for years, I didn't realize he's a walk-on. And that's another thing about Purdue. If you come to Purdue, you're going to get an opportunity. We had a lot of walk-ons that ended up having Hall of Fame pro careers. So Purdue's just a unique place. It's more like family.
We hear that a lot, that this community is like family. What do you think about this special spirit where, you have all these head coaches talking to each other on Twitter, going to each other's games, supporting each other? That's special. You don't see that everywhere.
That is also, I think, something that's pretty unique, and it's real. It's not manufactured. But when you get to know the head coaches, Kay Gerald's she's gonna have Purdue in the Final Four for women's basketball, I promise. Dave Shondell is a legend in the volleyball world. You see a legend like Gene Cady, and he comes here. He got a standing ovation. Matt Painter's done an amazing job. Think about the fact. How many coaches, for an example, using IU as an example, and this isn't a bad take, it's just reality, they probably had 10 coaches the same amount of time we had 2.
Yeah.
And that's unbelievably unique, and I'm hoping Ryan Walters becomes that next coach, becomes our next Joe Tiller, because I think he will. I know he's going to have success, but I think he's already bought into and already understands the culture of Purdue. And he's been welcomed as a family member, so I think him and his family are really enjoying themselves down here.
Any favorite football stories or behind-the-scenes stories you can tell our listeners?
I have quite a few I can't tell your listeners, but there's been a lot of them. It's people doing the radio for 31 years. People ask me, is there any highlights that stick out? And interestingly enough, and I think your viewers will enjoy this story, it had nothing to do with football. But when my son, who's a Purdue grad, he's 36 years old now, but when he was 14, I brought him and 2 of his friends up into the press box. Don't have any memories on who we played that day, but I really wanted him to meet our halftime guest, who is one of the greatest Boilermakers of all time. And a good-looking older gentleman, probably about 70 years old, wearing a suit, very classy, articulate. And I said, Peter, Shane, Anthony, this is my halftime guest. When he was 14 years old, he grew up in Ohio, he had two dreams. One was to get an engineering degree from Purdue, and the other one was to march in the Purdue Marching Band. Not only did he get his degree, but he became a 4-year starting varsity band member. Well, my son and his two buddies were jocks, so they didn't care, but they were raised right, so they faked it. And, oh, that's really cool. Kind of half-heartedly shook his hand. My guest looks at me and he gives me a bear hug and goes, I've been introduced a few times, that's my best introduction. And I said, Peter, guys, come back. One more thing, he's also the first man to ever walk on the moon. So the whole game, I'm trying to broadcast, and behind me, my son is with Neil Armstrong, my wife is with Neil's wife, and I wanted to be in those conversations so much, but they stuck with us for the whole game, and that's kind of what makes Purdue special. He would not allow us to interview him during halftime because they didn't want to miss the band performance. And I bet you most people don't even know that Neil was in the band. We've got the greatest band. When I was a player, it was tough going on the road, playing in the Big Ten or playing at UCLA in California, but when you saw the Purdue band there, you knew you had a chance.
That's amazing. Anything else you want to say about the Boilermaker community, our faithful football fans out there?
Well, all the new students, the kids going there now, you're coming at a great time. I think Mitch Daniels, in my opinion, did the best job of a college university president in history. I'm a huge Mitch Daniels fan. And Matt Painter's a Hall of Famer. Ryan Walters is an exciting hire. We've got Katie Gerald's now building the program. We've got a great group of coaches, great group of student athletes, and the world's changing. You know, we've got this new NIL stuff going on, which is going to be hard to navigate, but I think Purdue is leading the nation on doing it the right way. And I've got a lot of my friends from the Boiler Business Exchange involved in that. And I think it's just a great time to be a Boiler. It's always a great time, but it's the best time in the world to be a Boilermaker.
I love that.